As of the published date of this episode, I am an associate of Ulta Beauty. The ideas and thoughts represented here are my own and not that of my employer.
Welcome to the Scaling Emerging Beauty Podcast, a podcast that provides tactical insights and practical growth tips as you look to scale your brand from 0 to 20 million. I'm your host, Monique Benoit. I have experience in both buying products at major retailers in the US and also in selling products into those retailers. And in today's episode, I sit down and talk about another founder story in scaling the brand Geologie with Nick Allen and Dave Scaff, co-founders of the brand. Here's a snippet from our conversation.
And I think anybody who's been successful that says luck didn't play a role in it is lying.
Yeah. There's hard work, there's many things, but there's a little bit of luck that goes into that too. Let me tell you a little bit more about Nick and Dave. Nick is a serial entrepreneur, and he is the CEO of Geologie. And Dave is a friend of Nick's, but also someone who has complementary skills to Nick, as you'll hear from the show. He is the COO of Geologie. I'm really excited for you all to hear this story today because every founder story is so unique. And you'll hear from Nick and Dave that they were not necessarily familiar with the beauty industry, but what they did have was business know-how. They took those trades that they've learned in tech and other areas of entrepreneurship and applied them to the beauty industry and scaled this brand. This episode has gems that can help brands at a variety of levels of scale. So I'm really excited for you all to hear it today. We'll hear a brief word from our episode sponsor, and then we'll get into the show. I'd like to take a moment to thank the sponsor for the Scaling Emerging Beauty podcast, the Emerson Group. Through their support, we're able to continue to talk to industry experts to provide early stage brands with strategies and tactical insights on what they can do to help their business grow better. Thank you again to the Emerson Group for their continued support. And let's go ahead and continue with the show. And look, I love to talk to founders. You guys know that this podcast is focused on providing tips to scale at retail. And I've heard recently it's easier than ever to launch a brand, but it is harder than ever to scale. And so I'm really excited to talk to both of you in your experience with scaling Geologie. And we can talk about the fun world that is over here in this retail CPG business. But I'd love to just start about the idea. So who had the idea to start the brand? And when did you first start selling product? Like what year? What was the timing for that?
Sure. It was my idea to start the brand. I had done 2 consumer tech companies prior to this, and one of them was bought by General Motors. And I was doing some work for them in Korea. I bought my girlfriend some fancy Korean skincare products because wasn't about to come home empty-handed, you know what I'm saying?
Smart guy.
Yeah. So, but I was close to turning 40. I'm actually 46 now. And I had literally never washed my face before. So I did the whole routine with her, and I was like, this is amazing. Why don't I do this?
Wow. It's the little things sometimes, like washing your face. It is a therapeutic, I would say, regular routine, washing my face. I can admit to that. There's something very, very soothing about it.
It's like a mini trip to the spa. Yeah. And I love the spa. So really, like, that's where it came from. That was my, like, aha moment to skincare. And I just kind of dove into the category and started researching skincare and skincare for men and how people buy it and what to do. And I found it all incredibly confusing. And I felt stupid. And I went to a Sephora. That was not the place for me. And I went to a Macy's, and that was not the place for me. And I ordered a bunch of stuff online, and that didn't work. I got a bunch of garbage, and I was like, there's got to be a better way.
So I'm curious, Nick, when you were shopping overseas, was it something specific about the product that stood out to you that you liked? Or did you like the fact that there was this time to wind down? Like, what about it made you say, oh, this is something that I want to double click into and make this a business?
Well, I mean, the connection from the shopping experience in Korea to wanting to make this a business, like, I wasn't thinking about that when I was buying the product. You know, I was just like, I want to get my girlfriend some expensive, nice stuff, right. You know? So that was like one thing. And then the starting the business was like an opposite feeling. It was like, oh, I don't want to spend like that kind of money on a routine for a guy, you know? It was like,
okay,
let's just keep this simple because I don't know what I'm doing, you know?
yeah,
And I figured
yeah.
there was a lot of people like me who just like found the whole process overwhelming. Do I need a serum? I don't even know what a serum is. What is a T-zone? Still don't know what that is. Ask me what my skin type is, Monique. I still have no idea. I'm the founder of a skincare brand. I don't know my skin type.
But you were able to figure out how to pull together some skincare products that will work for someone like you. And when would you say you started selling?
2019.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how did you then team up with Dave? When did you bring him on board? What did you do first in creating the brand? Like you had this idea. Did you go to branding first? Did you go to product and figuring out what's the goop that's going to be in the bottle first? I'm just curious about your process there.
Sure. Well, Dave and I have known each other for a very long time. And he had worked and helped me on some of my other startups. And Dave's an ops guy, and I needed some help with that. But the first thing I did, honestly, was I was like, okay, I don't know enough about skincare to do this on my own. I need to find an expert in skincare. So in the course of my research, I found our dermatologist, this guy, Dr. Steve Zhu, who is, the guy's CV is like 27 pages long. I'm not joking. And he did this study years ago about the efficacy of SPF products. And it got a lot of press. It was in the New York Times, Men's Health, Wall Street Journal. It was all over the place. So I was Googling him. I was like, this guy is serious.
Legit.
And I cold called him. And I left him a voicemail. And he called me back.
Wow. Serendipity.
Yeah, we spent 2 hours on the phone. I was like, can you help me with this? He's like, sure. And I hopped on a plane and flew to Chicago the next week and locked him down.
I often hear that there is a little bit of luck in this business creating process. And maybe you could say it is in reaching out to a very well decorated and well acclaimed dermatologist to help you build this brand. It could be that you happen to meet someone who was working at the retailer that you work with, but there is a little bit of luck in this that you found somebody who was a great partner for you, but also someone who would add a lot of credibility for your brand.
Definitely. And I think anybody who's been successful that says luck didn't play a role in it is lying.
Yeah. Yeah. There's hard work. There's many things, but there's a little bit of luck that goes into that too.
Yeah.
So I'm curious then if you, with all the things, I know there were a ton of things that went into this, into building and scaling the brand. But if you could create a checklist of things that you have as you begin to scale, you begin to build your brand, what would you have on there? And I'm especially curious to hear this from you because you really came to the industry not having a lot of know-how, but you did come from a founder mindset. So I do think that's important. You had already created a business, just not necessarily in CPG, but
Correct.
Beauty and retail was all new to you.
All new, yeah. Dave came up with most of the checklists.
Let's hear it, Dave.
Yeah, obviously at the beginning we had to break it down into small parts. Nick really had a vision for personalized skincare. We still do the vast majority of our business through our diagnostic quiz. You go to our website, you answer a couple questions, you get a regimen recommended for you. That works for both men, women, everybody. The work that we did in 2018 to build that has actually really, really stood the test of time. We put a lot of energy into getting the questions right to determine people's skincare concerns and their goals in plain language, right? We didn't want to ask about T-zone. We didn't want to ask about combo skin. We wanted to ask about, what are your goals? Do you want sun protection? Do you want brighter skin? What are your problems? Do you struggle with acne? Do you struggle with darker under eyes? Plain language was always key to us, breaking down skincare into plain language. And then Steve was able to take plain language and with some help from us sort of back that into the ingredients that we needed. And then we figured out from the ingredients we needed how we were going to put those all into a set of formulations that would satisfy literally every outcome that we could possibly get from our personalized diagnostic system. Mm-hmm. So it actually was quite a bit of upfront work. And we actually launched with 10 different products in 2 different sizes. So we could do trials and full sizes. So we launched with 20 SKUs, which is crazy.
Oh, wait, 20 SKUs in total. I was thinking it was 5 and 5. But
no.
You had 10 full size and 10 trial. I think the trial is really smart.
The first time we met with our eventual contract manufacturer, hey guys, how many SKUs are you starting with? 20. Whoa.
Yeah. I was like, I'm not going to say that's not smart, but I don't typically advise.
I wouldn't advise it.
I wouldn't do
it's
it that
because
way.
that's a lot.
Yeah, I wouldn't advise it. I wouldn't do it that way again. But the good news is that that whole system has stood the test of time. It's actually changed very little over the years. I mean, we're 6 years into this. We have tons of data. Over 2 million people have taken the diagnostic and produced personalized regimens over the years. And we've really only added one single product to the personalization system as well. We've launched a bunch of other products outside of that.
Which one? What did we add?
Vitamin C.
Oh, the vitamin C, yeah. Which is a wonderful product. I would say it is probably my favorite.
It's definitely
the one I am consistently able to stick with.
Everyone needs a vitamin C in their regimen.
Getting back to the checklist, though, doing things methodically up front definitely helped us. And this is where Nick had the CEO mindset. We need to launch in 3 months. I had the COO mindset. We need to do it right. And honestly, at the end of the day, I think that produced a productive tension at that time and has continued to produce productive tension over time. Certainly, I would also just say, if you're building this business with a founder, make sure you choose your co-founder very, very seriously. I mean, it's an important decision. It is like a marriage in many ways. Business partnership is like a marriage. You may spend more time with your business partner on a daily basis than you do with a spouse, to be honest.
True.
Especially in the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially in the beginning. I mean, choose your partner wisely. I mean, Nick and I, because we knew each other for a long time, had a lot of friendship. Sure, there was a risk there. Oh, what if we ruined the friendship? But in fact, I think over the years, our friendship has produced a lot of trust that has actually, produced tons of benefit, I think, throughout the organization as well. We do have some overlap in our responsibilities, but for the most part, we have very different responsibilities and we let each other do everybody does their job. We play our role and it works out really well. But I definitely think hey, right up at the top, if you're thinking about a partner in your business, make sure you choose very, very wisely.
Yeah.
That's really good advice. And Nick, the other thing that you said early on when I said, why did you pick Dave? You said, well, I knew I needed an ops guy. So it sounded like you knew what you didn't know. And that's how you chose to bring him in. I'm guessing that you aren't an ops guy.
Well, I'm an operator, but there's certain things that I do not excel at. This is my third company. I realized in the other two, more so in my second one, what I was missing. I needed someone, I needed a right hand that I could trust to, here's a problem, this needs to be tackled. And that's just that, go for it. And there's an attention to detail to things. Dave does a lot of our packaging work, right? Okay. And that requires, my previous companies were apps and software stuff. So you could make a mistake, who cares? Make mistakes all the time. You fix it in 1 second. But the bottle, you can't make the mistake because you make 30,000 of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot more consequences, the packaging, compatibility, finishes, and then to your point, you can be throwing away thousands of dollars.
Yeah. Or way more.
Yeah. I think it definitely helps to know your strengths, right? Know your strengths and try to make sure that you bring other people around you to complement your strengths and your weaknesses. Absolutely, for sure. I definitely think that requires being honest with yourself. It's not just what am I really good at? I think it's also what can I do at the speed of business, right? There are a lot of things that people might be good at, but they can't really do it at the speed of business, right? And those things are wonderful to keep as hobbies in your own life, I would say. I think we've had a good productive relationship. I think we've really been able to build our team effectively by recognizing what we're not good at. Recognize what you're not good at and hire to support that.
Yeah.
And sometimes you see these things emerge pretty naturally, hey, we're smart, jack of all trades people trying to figure something out. And we've tried it 3 different ways now and it's not working. I think we might need some pro help here,
Yeah. I'd say there are some, we probably at certain times took too long to realize that.
Sure.
And sort of tried to muscle some things where someone with some more grace and experience could have done a better, faster, cheaper job.
Yeah.
I think the other thing in the checklist, and this was, Dave deserves all the credit for this, is for beauty founders, is you need a very good manufacturing partner. We made the mistake, or I'd say I made the mistake in the first round, and Dave bailed us out.
Yeah, I mean, we started with one contract manufacturer. They actually did a great job with their initial sort of aesthetic product formulation, but they weren't producing our first orders very well. And we were able to discover that before we launched, which was very fortunate for us. So we were able to make some moves. Obviously, I think that independent beauty founders come from a lot of different backgrounds. Sometimes they know marketing, sometimes they know supply chain. We didn't know supply chain when we began. So we had to source all of our packaging vendors, all of our contract manufacturers, and learn how business was done on all of those levels, like literally from scratch. So that was, I would say we got lucky. Like Nick said earlier, luck matters. We got lucky in a bunch of different ways. So yeah, I mean, we recognized some things weren't good. We made some moves, etc. But, we put our nose to the grindstone. We found out who makes tubes, who makes jars, who makes airless containers, who makes bottles, right? We figured all of that out, but it took a lot of work. I mean, certainly other indie beauty founders who are coming to the table with, knowing supply chain.
Know-how.
Contacts, contract manufacturer contacts, packaging contacts.
Let's put it this way. The contract manufacturer that we work with now that has been, I would say, our secret weapon forever, basically, we didn't know how much things cost, right? So how much is the juice supposed to cost? We didn't know, right?
They're like, what do you mean? They're like, well, you give us a cost target. We were like,
just make it amazing. That was
amazing.
Make it amazing.
They're like, so they're trying to understand, are we giving mass? Are we giving luxury? Are we giving prestige? And you guys are like, can you just make it?
The answer to, are you giving mass, luxury, or prestige is yes.
Yeah. All we had were very specifics about the active ingredients and the concentrations of the active ingredients. So like the percentages of niacinamide, hyaluronic acid, retinol, like all of those things were dialed by Dr. Steve and in all our various products so that we could serve like sensitive skin and not sensitive skin. It's not just the ingredient. It's like how much of the ingredient.
Right.
Like we print that stuff like right on the front of the bottle, so it says like, 2% of this, 4% of that.
Right. But the touch feel, that's like such a big part of that product development. It's like, do you want this to be a cream? Do you want this to be, if it's a serum, do you want it to be a creamy serum? Do you want it to be an oil-based serum? Do you want it to, how viscous is it? There's so many things that can go into it. I wonder if that helped with your speed too, though, because does that mean you guys weren't necessarily super specific? Because I have heard from founders that are like, nope, I know that I want it to be less tacky. Can you send it back to the lab and make it less tacky? Were you guys like the beauty of it or the real, the star, right? The thing that's going to win in this product is the balance of the formulations that you made based on the skin, this upfront work that you did with the personalization. Is that where you guys made that?
We did a great job from the beginning. We also got great pricing from the beginning. We didn't know it at the time. We know it now because we priced things out with other manufacturers, et cetera. We know it now. So, these are areas where we really did get very, very lucky. I think we were able to bring a software mindset to product development as well, right? Like it was more important for it to be great, not perfect, but great, and launch and learn. And great and fast, and then launch and learn. And we have literally redone every single formulation that we launched with at least twice since then. And in many cases, 3 or 4 times. We actually have applied that spirit of software innovation, right? We're going to listen to what our customers have told us. Oh, this one's a little bit too thick. Actually, some of our first SPFs were too thick. And now they're much more cosmetically elegant, right? But, they didn't stop us from producing great results. I mean, they were a little bit too thick, but they were also rich in the active ingredients and they made a difference and they did exactly what they said they were going to do. So we were providing results for customers. Even if it wasn't perfect, it was still great. And great is pretty good.
Especially for guys. Like they don't really have a deep depth of knowledge of like what's good and what's not. It's actually one of the more difficult things about being a very high efficacy skincare brand with predominantly male customers. We're about 80-20, 75-25 male to female.
Wow.
And guys don't know what the difference between good and bad is until they actually experience it.
Yeah.
So we try to explain, and our competitors are saying they're great, everybody says they're great, but most skincare out there is terrible. It's filled with a bunch of junk. It's not good for you. It might be bad for you, and people don't understand these things. And what a lot of people do too, and I don't, there's nothing wrong with this, but a lot of times people buy products from other brands that the ingredients are actually competitive with each other. So they're putting one thing on and then they're putting this other thing on, and the ingredients in those two things don't play well together. And they're like, why is my skin messed up? I'm using these really nice, expensive products. It's like, well, that doesn't go with that.
Yeah.
That's
because
part of what we
not
try to do.
every
Just keep it simple. You need a handful of products, really high efficacy ingredients, and just try not to overcomplicate it.
Yeah. It's interesting that you say that, Nick, because some brands will formulate for compatibility with other products. But to your point, not all brands do that. And so you can have a fantastic product, but maybe it doesn't work well with something else, especially I know for on the women's side with makeup. That's where you can get a lot of things on our side where it's like this sunscreen does not go well under this makeup, or this moisturizer does not go well. So I know in some cases it might be serums, moisturizers, but they just don't always go together.
Sure.
So there's kind of two ways to start a brand, right? You can kind of go with the fast, hit them heavy, hit them hard, and just try to scale as fast as possible. Then you'll kind of plateau. Or you can kind of do like a crawl, walk, run kind of pace to build a little bit at a time. I will say I typically advise on the latter.
Definitely.
But you can have success with the go for it fast. So I'd love to talk about some of your first expansions past DTC. So you started a brand in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have a strategic plan on how you wanted to scale? Did you follow the plan? Because sometimes it's like we had a plan, but then what had happened was this over here. So what happened?
That's a really good question. I would say we got it like 70% right. Nothing's really in your control. You have only a certain amount, so you're constantly just reacting to things. You have your plan, but shit happens, I agree with you on the crawl, walk, run approach, but you can't crawl, walk, run with everything. Take when I say speed, it's like, hey, we don't have enough money in the bank to take 18 months to develop these products. We'll never get them to market, or we won't have enough money in the bank when we do get to market them.
That's good.
So
I don't think the founders always think about that, especially depending on your personality type. You might be thinking, but I just want to get my formulation to be perfect.
Bad idea.
And you can go through 2 years of iterations to get your product to exactly what you want it to be, but that's also how you burn through cash.
Yeah, and maybe the product is perfect for you, but no one else knows about it.
Yeah. So what is the cheapest and fastest way you can find product market fit? I'll tell you a little bit of a story. When we did our first formulations with the first manufacturer that did not become our eventual manufacturer, we literally, I have pictures of us, of Nick and I in 2018, actually pumping formulation into small bottles and making these little kits. We sent out 500 kits. We got a list of people together from friends. We had them do an early version of the diagnostic. We didn't have a website. We did it in type form, right? No website. We didn't know the name of the company at that time. So we did the first version of our diagnostic through a type form. We got everybody's different regimens. We packed them by hand ourselves. We sent them out to 500 people, and then we did surveys. Right? We did that over the course of about 2 months, and it was very informative. We learned a ton, and we didn't spend very much money doing it, right? We didn't have a website. We didn't have a name. So I think that there are some, you don't have to have it all perfect to start getting feedback that's going to help you find product market fit.
Yeah. I remember taking our first test kit to an investor, and this particular investor, I won't say who it is, but they're New York, and they're big brand people, right? The brand really matters. And I show up with this fully unbranded
lab samples,
basically
white bottle, black bottom, clear top.
I'm like, yeah, here's what we're doing. And they're looking at me like, I didn't realize it at the time, but they were just like, this guy knows nothing about
the packaging was even worse than that. It was stuff we bought on, I think McKernan is the name, the sort of overstock packaging supplier. We bought like 500 random units on that. They were packed into we had some foam cut out in a box. I mean, honestly,
it wasn't cute.
It was bad, but we didn't raise money on it, but we did get the other job done.
Yeah.
Which was understanding what works about these current ideas that we have for the products, what things need to change, and is there a fit? Did you, when you went out to the 500 people, did you make sure it was a diverse group? Did you have a specific demographic? Were you like, no, we're going to focus in and hone in on a niche. It's men ages 30 to 50. How did you go about selecting those 500 people?
That's basically it. We were like, we want guys who probably are beginner skincare. We didn't have a lot of experienced skincare people because the whole premise was we need to make this easy for someone new because it's too hard. It's too hard to know what you need. It's too hard to know what is good or bad. It's too hard to know what an ingredient is right for you. And the whole point was just come here, fill out this little quiz, and we're going to give you really good product that's going to work for you. That was the premise.
But I mean, getting back to the point here about whether it's, does everything need to be perfect? No, definitely everything does not need to be perfect. You need to try to get feedback in some way, tangible, actionable feedback in some way, shape, or form as early as possible. I mean, if you just sit there in your basement and you keep it all to yourself until it's perfect, you may get it right, you might not get it right. You've got to get real world feedback from people about your brand, about the product, all of it.
For a lot of guys with female partners, it was great to get some of their feedback too of is this good product? We have the bona fides, we just won best exfoliating body wash in Cosmo, 3 weeks ago.
Congratulations. That's
Thank
awesome.
You. But we're it's great for us because 75% of our customers are men. So to win a prestigious award from a women's focused magazine, it just gives us the street cred, we make really good stuff.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about, since you mentioned street cred, let's talk about your brick and mortar expansion because you got to have some kind of street cred or a retailer just has to believe in you if you're going to expand. Yeah. So 2019, your DTC, what year did you expand to a physical retail presence? And then let's just talk about that expansion. Did you hire a team to help you expand? Were you actively approaching the retailers? Did they approach you? How did that happen?
Great group of questions. So we stuck to DTC for quite a while. It's more of our DNA, launching a beauty brand was already one thing that was new and challenging. And, we had more experience on our team with how to market digitally, right? Search, social, all of those things. So we took our time. We launched an Amazon, which I wish we paid more attention to earlier because we had someone working on it, had a partner, and they just didn't do a great job and we just didn't really pay attention to it. But then when we did, Amazon has been on a tear for us. Triple digit growth, growing profitably. We're just wow, I really wish we'd paid attention there first.
There's so much potential on Amazon as a DTC channel. And I say this as someone who has worked for physical retailers. And it's tough because the physical retailers will almost say oh, we'd like if you weren't necessarily on Amazon. But the reality is Amazon has fewer barriers, fewer monetary barriers. I know it's a pay to play.
Yeah.
But that pay to play is much more efficient, I would say, than many other channels when you're talking about scaling a CPG brand.
And it's a lot lower risk.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The brick and mortar,
you're right.
Honestly, was driven by the realities of the market of, hey, advertising costs are becoming more expensive. Brick and mortar is more exposure to an audience that you're probably not able to reach. People, especially post-pandemic, just getting back to normal shopping behaviors and a need to find new channels and new exposure and new awareness to the brand. It's really just part of the nuts and bolts of brand building over time that I've learned. It's like, I'd say we learned a couple things. Distribution is really important. And two, like straight up brand marketing, which we went through a period where we didn't do enough of, and we were just spending too much money, which worked in the beginning. Like we got a great audience in the beginning, right? Like Facebook and everything we were doing was working. So let's just do more of that. But then at some point, maybe we reached a scale or maybe times changed, but the audience and the customer that we were getting into especially for our business model, was not a good customer. They were looking to take advantage of our business practices and how we ran the business. And that forced us to rethink a lot of things that we were doing.
I think also when we're talking about that checklist, right? You got to know your numbers. Like you really, really need to know your numbers to know your business. We know our numbers really well right now. This is credit to Nick. I mean, Nick comes from hardcore numbers background, very good with, numbers, data coming from our customers and our site, but also, numbers as they relate to finances, what's every money, where's every dollar going, et cetera. And if you don't know your numbers really, really well, you can't do scenario planning. You can't know your business. So you got to know your numbers. And we've learned the hard way ourselves over time, right? I mean, even as DTC specialists at the outset, we knew our numbers pretty well, but, we've had misadventures along the way. And now, I mean, at this point, we have like dashboards for everything. So we can check on the health of everything, right? How's our shipping going? What are our shipping charges going? Obviously, everything as it relates to our digital advertising. Obviously, everything as it relates to our retail, like revenue and success, but like in our shipping operation, like how quickly is everything getting delivered? How quickly are we getting packages out and customer service? All sorts of data, right? How quickly is our response time? But like eventually, I mean, you need to be paying attention to the numbers because you need to know what's normal and you need to be able to recognize what's not normal and fix it like fast.
Yeah. That's really good. And when you say what's not normal, Dave, I'm hearing like, oh, we were spending all this money on marketing and we were getting the wrong customer. So, hey, let's stop spending that marketing money because we don't like who we're attracting. And let's figure out how we can market differently so that we get the customer that we want, right? Or that's like one example.
That's one example.
Yeah, I think there are tons of examples. I mean, you need to know what's right. I mean, working with your contract manufacturers, working with your packaging suppliers, what's a good, fair price for a product, right? We had a really important packaging element that was just too expensive. And we went to a packaging manufacturer and said, if we can't get this cheaper, like by half, basically, we're not going to be able to do X, Y, and Z initiatives. So this product's probably never going to grow. And I didn't think it would even happen. It was like, I'm just going to give them this challenge and see what happens. Well, they actually helped us. We did it.
And we saved so much money on that decision that we're able to bring that packaging. It's right behind Dave's shoulder, actually. Those body washes, the bottles are really awesome. Yeah. And the caps are cool. They like click open and the stuff comes out of the little hole and people love it. Yeah, but that bottle, when we first started buying it, was super expensive.
Yeah. I can imagine.
To bring that bottle to Target at the price point that we wanted to bring it at was not possible. So we had to figure it out.
What I really like about what you said is that you were upfront and honest with your contract manufacturer about what it is. Like, hey, if you can't figure out how to get this cost down, this product isn't going to grow, which then you're saying to them, you are not going to be producing as much. So you're not going to be making all this money, which like we're trying to run a profitable business. Yeah. And that's a really interesting way.
It's generally, I think it is a dead end in most cases to go to any supplier and say, I just want it cheaper. I mean, it's been very, very helpful for us to paint the business picture, right? Here's the opportunity here. And I mean, we've been a successful growing business year over year. So, I mean, we have credibility with our suppliers on this front now. So it's helpful. But still, I would just say like, yeah, everybody wants it cheaper, but you've got to help, like, you've got to be a good partner. I mean, we've also worked over the years to consolidate more and more business with fewer manufacturers of packaging and juice, both, right? And so that shows good partnership on our side too, right? So there are a lot of ways you can be a good partner. It's not just them serving you. There are things you can do on your side as a brand owner to be a good partner too. And then you're going to create a good relationship. That's key.
To go back to the brick and mortar thing, so, some of the decision making was driven by outside forces of like, oh, hey, we just need to do this, and we've learned a lot. It is a different world that we did not understand very well. And I recommend to learn more about it if you're thinking about doing it.
So did you hire, let's talk about 2019, you're on your DTC site. What year did you go to Amazon?
2021.
I think so.
Okay. Wow. So wait a few years. And then when did you guys get into Target?
So the conversation with Target started very early on, like very early in the business. And I realized right away, like, this is not for us right now. And our price points for our line at the time were not appropriate for Target.
A retailer like Target.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We decided to manufacture an acne line. A lot of our customers say they have issues with acne, which was surprising to me personally, because I'm like, there's a million acne treatments. Like, how is this still a problem, right? You got all these different options. And what we realized through Dr. Steve and our customers is that really good acne care is not super accessible, or it's not very enjoyable. The most common ingredient is benzoyl peroxide. Benzoyl peroxide smells bad. It stains your clothes. It really burns your skin. And now there's some carcinogen talks out there. The problem was people go to use these ingredients and then they can't get into a routine because it's awful. And then they don't get their acne cleared up.
Right.
So anyway, long story short, we decided to develop this acne line. And as we were developing it, we went to Target and we were like, we want to develop this for Target, basically. Like, we think you'd be a great retailer for us. So we changed all the packaging, changed the formulas, like did everything to like try to fit that customer and that price point. What we got wrong, I'll say this. We did not get our assortment perfect the first time around. So some of our SKUs didn't sell great. We bundled them into kits. And, this is something that didn't work great for us the first time around. And now this coming year, we're breaking the kits apart and there's so much value in the product. It's more accessible to get into the brand. We're really stoked about the new lineup.
Nice.
I guess I'll also add this. I mean, as Nick described, it was a long process. We also had a buyer who really liked what we were doing, who was kind of picking up what we were putting down, and who I think we really felt like truly understood and appreciated and fully valued our product philosophy and the proposition that we were providing. At a time when Target was cutting brands and cutting SKUs, we were the only new entry into the complexion care category in 2024, the only new one. So,
wow.
I do think it matters. You need to find retail partners, again, that you feel good partnership with. I think that really matters, right? Because it's going to be a hard relationship at times, right? So you're going to want to have faith that you guys are sort of on the same side of the table and we're trying to do the right thing here for the customer.
We spent 2 years with Target before they said yes.
Yes.
Part of the reason that they said yes is we ran full clinical trials to prove that our products outperform benzoyl peroxide. We published this in a medical journal, double blind, split face, legit science.
Expensive testing.
We did the work to be able to say, hey, this is actually not only gentler on your skin, but it's as effective. And that was what we were trying to prove. And Target saw that as hey, there's been a transition away from just hey, these are clean ingredients to effectiveness. We make derm grade, super effective stuff at an approachable price point. And there's not a lot of that on the shelf, especially in a place like Target. You go in there and it's a lot of the products are just not that good.
It's true.
I guess something else to be said for the flip side of this as well, right? Again, we're talking to a lot of people who are into beauty, trying to scale brands out there. We're in an environment now where funding is harder to get than it ever has been before, and people are prioritizing profitability over growth at all costs, right? And I actually get excited when I see an article and I see a brand founder saying, hey, in the current environment, we don't think retail expansion is the right move for us right now, or we're going to have to be really selective, or we're going to start small before we go big to mass. I say that guy probably knows his business. That guy or that woman probably really knows their business. Like, you have to know like what you can afford. You have to like not put too much risk on the table, kind of chasing the dream too fast, I would say.
Yeah.
So really, really understanding the numbers, really, really understanding your business is key to making the right decision as to how to approach distribution.
And I'd add to what Dave is saying with like, you can make the mistakes at mass retail are so big. They're so big. You make a mistake and these are like,
it costs.
These are big 6-figure plus mistakes, and that really hurts. Like I underestimated the challenge of marketing in a new way to people, to the target customer, right? Like I thought, honestly, this is going to sound stupid, but we had a great box, we had great placement. I literally thought it would just fly off the shelf.
I mean, maybe 10 years ago, that would have been the case.
Maybe.
But in this day and age, that's not what's happening anymore because there's so many options and the consumer is really, they need to have seen the brand. I think it's like 7 to 9 times before they consider it. So it's like they need to be seeing Geologie showing up on their social media feeds. And I'm sure I'm going to get a whole bunch of ads after this conversation as well. Right?
I hope so.
But it's like they need to be talking about things, hearing things, seeing little inklings, hearing an influencer there or a friend. Yeah. And now then when they go to the store, they're going to see it and they're like, oh, let me pick it up.
Yeah. And now with our new assortment, there's so much value and the product is so good. And I feel much better about our ability to really sell through this product and introduce people to the brand because in the kits, it's multiple products. It's a commitment, and you have to be ready for that. And I think some of the people new to the brand want to start with something else. Just like, hey, let me try this out.
Yeah. I mean, for us, complete regimens are the heart and soul of our e-commerce business and they work great there. It's fantastic. We put everything together. It all works together. All the ingredients work together, etc. It's a different story in store. We are notably different than most brands are not selling complete routines, e-commerce or anywhere else. So for us, it's sort of a different equation. But yeah, as Nick said, I mean, what we've got lined up for 2025 is going to be, I think, really meeting the customer where they are.
So I know we're coming up on time. So I'm going to ask the general question that I always ask at the end of the podcast, but I'd love for you to just share what role do you see your DTC, Amazon, and then your brick and mortar retail partners playing in your current growth strategy? Like, is it like DTC, you're still looking to grow there, you still invest there? Is DTC more so like in a maintain? Amazon's consistently in a growth, and Target, you're figuring out, retail, you're figuring out, but that's also like an area of investment. How are you bucketing that? Because I think that's one of the bigger things that a lot of brand founders, once they do get the opportunity to scale, it's like you don't have the same amount of funds, or you have the same amount of funds you had last month, but now you have more partners.
Yes.
So how do you spread the love?
Great.
Or do you just choose?
It's a great question. The beauty of it is they start to work together. So like when one is working, you don't try to do everything at once. Get one working, then add the other one, get that one working, then add the other one and get that one working. I would say we got it mostly right, know, but it's much better. I think I would have done things slightly differently. Not crazy different, but just spent a little bit more time making sure everything was working properly. Don't try to fix a hole by digging another hole. Or don't try to fix a problem by being like, oh, well, this problem's over here, but we're going to do so well over here that you're not going to see this thing over here. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So like, I know that we're not growing in this channel, this area over here, but we're going to just triple invest over here. But you still have the fact that you're not growing there. Something's not working.
It's not right.
You got to figure that out.
You got to figure that out because you're just going to translate probably some of those problems to the other channel, right? If your marketing on Amazon or on Facebook or on search is not resonating, it's not going to resonate in brick and mortar. You know, you got to get the message right. You got to get the customer right. Like, you got to get your packaging right. Like, all of these things matter. And if you just try to, you know, do too many things with the parts not all working in order, it's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, I think I want to just build on that and build a little bit on sort of what worked and what didn't work in year one for us at Target. What works in one channel might not work in all of your channels, right? So what we have our most success with at direct to consumer is not what we have our most success with at Amazon, is not what we have our most success with at retail either.
It is honestly shocking how different they are. Like, DTC for us, we sell full routines on subscription. People love it. And that's mostly skincare. Amazon, we sell a ton of body care. All like individual SKUs. We don't really sell our regimens that much there. Same with brick and mortar. People like individual products better. They don't like the bundles. On our website, bundles.
Interesting. It makes sense, though, especially if you're bringing people in on your website through those personalized quizzes.
Right.
But it's also just something to keep in mind. And if you were in a totally different category, who knows if that would be the same or if it would be a little bit different if you were in something like hair care.
It's a journey. My advice to founders
I was going to say parting words.
Is really like, it is really hard. It is emotionally like, it is a roller coaster. You know, I have definitely like felt the highs and the lows, and you got to be ready and willing to like buckle in for a long time and work hard and be scrappy and creative. And don't think you're just going to like make a magic brand and make $100 million. Like, it does not work like that.
I don't know why people think that. I mean, people will say, Monique, you've worked with so many brands. You should create. No, that's not for me.
I don't know, man. I mean, it worked like that for Hero. What do you mean?
I mean, I feel like that was one of those things where it was like timing. I do think every now and then,
yes,
it's like you end up finding the right product at the right time.
In the right channel.
In the right channel, and it just takes off. Because I also think, though, but there was proven success over in Asia, right? So Ju really was like, hey, I know this works over here. I'm pretty sure it's going to work over here in the U.S. market.
Nailed it.
And it was, nailed it.
All respect, it was legit innovation in a space where it is hard to have legit innovation.
It was. I mean, just the idea of like a Band-Aid for a zit, it's so genius. Even my teenager, you know, her and her friends, they're almost like decorating their faces with these zit stickers. Whereas like for us, it was very much shame and like it was it wasn't cute.
There's 1,000 ways she could have gotten it wrong too.
Yeah.
You know what?
There's definitely some things behind it. She
had to do 1,000 things right.
Yeah.
To make that legit innovation do what it did. So, I mean, but all respect to everybody out there that's listening to this podcast who's thinking about getting in the game, competing in the game at any level. I mean, you know, as Nick said, you got to be ready for the game. The game is not easy, but like we have a lot of respect for everybody out there who's trying to do their thing. We really do.
Yeah.
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 And there are some brands out there that I'm very impressed with that just like, I'm like, wow, I wish we had some of that juice because they're killing it.
I love it. Well, look, thank you guys so much for coming on the show. This was such a great conversation, so transparent, which is so helpful because it's not like the other thing that I think is so interesting with CPG is that it changes so much. Like what worked 10 years ago, especially in the past, call it 20 years, social media and technology has significantly accelerated all of the different changes of what works and what doesn't work. Retail is consistently changing. So it's a really dynamic environment to be an entrepreneur in, but it's so fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We love to be a part of it. Thanks for having us on the show.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you again to Nick and Dave for joining me on the show. This episode is proof that you don't necessarily have to be a beauty industry vet to be able to scale your brand successfully. Thank you guys. Your energy was great and I had a wonderful time talking to you. And thank you for listening to the show. If you're still here and you're listening on Apple or Spotify podcasts, please give the pod a review. It allows other people to hear about the show. And if you're watching on YouTube, thank you for sticking with me for this long. Go ahead and give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss an episode. I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.